So in this particular chapter, I'm introducing a character who's been referred to in the series. And it's the first time it's from her perspective, but she's only 3. So I'm thinking, how do I want to kind of present this? And so she's growing up in a fishing village. Her mother has died. And psychology-wise, children have a hard time sometimes thinking in terms of being separate from their parents. So that's where you have the separation anxiety. So instead of bonding with her mother, she has bonded with the lake. And she sees herself as one with the lake. And she's being raised by an older minister father who is stumbling his way through grief and guilt and regret. And what ends up severing her connection with thinking with the lake is him crossing boundaries that he should not cross because he's just kind of floundering and washed in all these emotions. And when he resets the boundaries, it severs her ties to the lake. So this is how I chose to kind of show some things that are going on through her perspective. She was the lake, and the lake was she. From deep beyond deep, it called to her from depth, and her chest rose and fell its answer. Sometimes its waves were gentle and easy. Sometimes they were short and choppy. Sometimes they were rapid, harsh, and heaving with spume. It hurt to lift her head, for her head was a sack of water-worn stones from the shore. Her fingers were as blue and white as the foamy lake on a clear day. Her tongue burned with brine. A fish fluttered in her breast. Its fins kicked with hard thumping. The fish had swum up from her tummy. She had a fish in her tummy because she always ate the fish on her plate. Sometimes she was the fish and father was the fisherman. He baited his hook with morsels of bread soaked in milk, vegetable nibbles and fish broth, and the occasional heap of berry jam. Her head wriggled, her lips popped, she clamped her mouth around the spoon. Drop by drop she filled with rippling water. It beat against her dam, she held it back, it beat some more, she held it harder, it burst, soaking and trickling down her stockings, splashing into her sturdy little boots and spreading a pond across the pine-scented boards. Father stripped her bare, rubbed her dry, and strolled across her shoreline before replacing the garments that billowed on windy days like sails on the fishing boat she liked to watch. Then he would mop up the pond, a giant son to drink up the water. She looked at the fish on her plate and the fish looked back. She tried not to blink because the fish did not blink. She tried not to move because the fish did not move. But she had to eat the fish or it would not live inside her. What a wisp of a child, the lady said at church. Reverend, a breath would blow her away. Exactly why I shelter her, Reverend said, or she will have the fate of her mother. She did not wish to live up on a hill and deep in the ground. She was the lake. Mild weather was easy, serene, drowsy, languid, warm. She watched Father cook, she watched Father bake. She watched Father sweep up the crumbs and beat back dust webs. She stood in a chair and watched Father boil cloves. She traced the steam's path as it ran down the glass. She watched Father knot clothes on twine stretched between 2 leafy green trees where squirrels played tag and robins sang their morning chorus and the sun warmed her cheeks and wet garments flapped cool against them and the sparkling lake hurt her eyes. She knelt beside Father on the parlor sofa and studied the squiggles on the pages that he studied. Each squiggle had a name, and Father introduced her to each one so that each one became a friend. She talked to them, and they talked back. In the cool of late afternoon, she watched Father untie the clothes, carry them inside, and hang them on pegs. The house smelled of lake. On stormy days, her boots thundered complaints, and syllables scintillated across the house, and anger raved from eyes of algae. Father feared the storms and begged God to make them cease. But no storm stops until it's spent, until she flopped around on the coiled rag rug in the center of the parlor, gasping like a caught fish. After storms, Father dug for worms. She dug for worms, and the soft earth broke her brittle nails. The lake lapped the shore, and she made mud. The lake lapped the shore and made mud. She made mud, too, scooping handfuls of dirt, drizzling it with water from her hovering mouth, and licking cleaner twigs until Father scolded her to stop, for he did not understand that she was the lake. She sat still in a teetering little boat while her father fished for dinner, and her thoughts drifted beyond the horizon, and she wondered what lay beyond it. She sat on Father's hard lap while he read stories about fishermen from the big book with the shiny gold-covered raised letters. Now, as Jesus was walking along the Sea of Galilee, he saw 2 boats lying at the edge of the lake. And the fishermen will lament, and all those who cast a line into the Nile. Behold, I am going to send for many fishermen, declares the Lord. At night she rested her head on Father's sturdy trunk while he read from the other big book. There once was a fisherman who lived with his wife in a pigsty. One day the father caught a fish and brought it home alive. As they were running about merrily, the stepmother watched them from the windows and grew angry, and she turned the little brother into a fish. She awoke in the dark, drenched. She crouched in the corner behind Father's big chair while the men choked the parlor with their smoke. She hunched on her stool and scribbled lines while his father sat at his desk and wrote. She perched in the front pew, swinging her branches while Father bellowed across the nave and thumped his fist on a podium. The wood tub had room for just 3 fish, a big hairy fish, a little smooth fish, and an eel. Father always entangled her wet fishing lines with a wide-toothed comb, and his gray moss glistened with remaining dew. I caught an eel, she told the bystanders at the general store, a big fat eel, just like this. With great detail, she had showed them how she grabbed it. Reverend remembered he left his coin purse at home and they had left in a hurry. The next time she caught an eel, he slapped her hand. She cried hard and he did not comfort her. Gradually, the lake receded until it was near her but not of her, and she forgot. A loud knock was heard at the back door. Before Reverend could stop her, Bryony trotted across the floor and flung it open. Bertha Parks charged into the room. Reverend Marseilles, Bertha said as she yanked the mop from his faltering hand, I am here to help. With a tremendous sigh of resignation and relief, Reverend relinquished his weapon to the household's new general.